give you or come address. Over to you, Dr. Vikramarchi.
Thank you, Professor Buddhi Marambe, who serves as a moderator of this webinar series. On behalf of the Alumni Association, Faculty of Agriculture, University of Peradeniya, I warmly welcome everybody here today, link via the Zoom. And actually, this is the fifth webinar program. Today, we are going to discuss a very important matter. We can see the participants from various industry participants as well as participants from the academia. Then I hope today the webinar will be a very interactive webinar through the questions and other interaction. Actually, our main goal is to create the platform for sharing the very important agricultural matters, timely important matters with our all stakeholders. That is, I think, when we see the previous 4 webinar, we have uh, greatly achieved our objective, because most of the stakeholders and their responses we got from them are very healthy, and feedback from them. Therefore, again, we request from everybody, ask your fellow officers to join this seminar program in future, because every other week on Wednesday, we are going to have this one, because we have already lined up more than 10 webinars, timely important one, and also we are planning for further adding into this list many other webinar titles. Therefore, I request everybody to participate in this one, as well as get the membership, because we know across the world there are many the alumni of the Faculty of Agriculture. Therefore, I kindly request bring this message to the other members, our alumni, and get the membership, because we can make a marvelous job for the agriculture of the Sri Lanka. Therefore, with this few remarks, again, I welcome you all for this important webinar, and I will give the floor to the Professor Buddhi Marambe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tushar Vikramarchi, the President of the Alumni Association of Faculty of Agriculture. Colleagues, I'm having a problem with my camera, so I'm not switching it on for the time being, but we'll go ahead with the presentation. So it's take me great pleasure today to introduce our speaker, because before I say that, we all know that pesticides have become talk of the town for quite a long period of time. In Sri Lanka, we have gone through imposing a ban on importation and use of pesticides in the recent past, which was revoked later due to societal pressure and understanding the scientific issues in relation to production aspects in agriculture. Very recently, about 7 days ago, we also learned from the European Parliament. It said that they are going to squash the decision that was taken to halve the hazardous pesticide used in agriculture and elsewhere. So that means the Green Deal of European Union will not include halving the pesticides as they have agreed upon earlier. And going further, we also do understand right now that the glyphosate ban, which was to be imposed, will not be in effect with respect to the European Union, and the license will be increased to be valid for another 10-year period. Those are the international scenarios. In Sri Lanka, when it comes to pesticides, we have heard a lot about entry of smuggled products, illegal pesticides, which are not being recommended by the Department of Agriculture and other research institutes, or in other words, which is not being permitted to be landed in Sri Lanka or prohibited quite a long time back. And in these scenarios, the registration of pesticides become extremely important for people to understand the process and how important the overall activity conducted by the Office of the Registrar of Pesticide under the guidance of Director General of Department of Agriculture. To talk about the key concerns in pesticide registration in Sri Lanka and their use, we have identified one of the best resource persons that we can bring in front of you. So it's a pleasure right now for me to introduce her to speak of the key concerns in pesticide registration in Sri Lanka. It will be Dr. Jeevani Marasinghe. Dr. Marasinghe was a graduate from Faculty of Science, specializing in zoology. Has received her MSc in Environmental Science from Postgraduate Institute of Science at University of Peradeniya. Her MPhil from Pesticide Technology and Risk Assessment from Griffith University, Australia, and PhD in plant protection, especially focusing on insecticide resistance in whitefly aphids obtained from postgraduate institute. That vast experience she'll be talking to us today. And ladies and gentlemen, there are few announcements that I have to make before I give the floor to Jeevani Marasinghe. The webinar is organized by the AAFAUP in a coordinated manner. In other words, the moderator and the speaker have had preliminary discussions to see how the presentation will be done. So both of us together have identified key issues to be addressed in this presentation. So it will be a smooth flow, as if I am asking a question and the resource person, Dr. Jeevani Marasinghe, will be responding to that. So that will be the flow mode of presentation in the AAFAUP public seminar series. Further, the participants are always welcome to ask questions, but not in the verbal form. Will not allow verbal questions coming in from the audience, but instead we kindly request all of you to type your questions in the chat box, and as the moderator, I please or direct in to at the end of the presentation. So Jeevani, while welcoming you once again, let me ask you the first question, which is considered as important in our case. And what we want to know from you is that about the global and Sri Lankan scenario of use of pesticides, because before going into registration aspects, it's always good to set the stage for us to understand how the global pesticide usage takes place. Over to you, Jeevani.
Thank you, sir. I will share my presentation, and thank you very much for introducing me and giving me this opportunity. Can you see the presentation?
We can. Can you please put it onto the presentation mode, Jeevani?
Yes, sir. Okay. Hope you can see it now.
Now it's on. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, again. And this is on the key concerns in pesticide registration in Sri Lanka and their use. And when we consider pesticides and the global scenario of their use, the global pesticide use has increased in the recent decade by about 50% compared to 1990s. And the average use in the past decade is 1.58 kilogram per hectare and 0.37 kilogram per person. And 0.79 kilograms per thousand international dollars of production. And during the last decade, Africa has used the lowest levels. However, since disinfectants are also considered as pesticides, the global trade in 2020 was very high and contributing 30% of the pesticides by disinfectants. These pesticides are, as you all know, key agricultural inputs. The global use in 2021 in agriculture was 2.7 million tons of the active ingredients, and whereas 7.3 million tons of the formulated products, and that has costed $41.1 billion US. So in 2021, India has used 61,701 tons, while Sri Lanka has used 2,777 tons. When consider the worldwide application per area of cropland, it was like 1.8 kilograms per hectare. In India, it was 0.37 kilograms per hectare, and in Sri Lanka, it was 1.17 kilograms per hectare. So these data I gathered from the FAO stat report. And here I compared the pesticide usage in cropland per area use in croplands and in agriculture, also per capita, and compared to the agricultural production in several countries, Bangladesh, India, Japan, Sri Lanka, and United States. In yellow color, you can see the usage levels of Sri Lanka. And it's like in Sri Lanka, the use per value of agricultural production is somewhat high when compared to other parameters. But in overall, we use a low level of low volume of pesticides in Sri Lanka. So this graph presents the change of imported quantities from 1998 to 2018 over 2 decades. And in couple of years, the volumes imported have reached like 8,000 tons. But however, in overall, we import around 3,000 to 4,000 tons annually on average. And this is somewhat the data like somewhat outdated, but not has changed a lot. By now, we have about 400 general use pesticide products of 100 and maybe more than 120 active ingredients. And these were gazetted. You can see in 2016, these products were gazetted. And also after 2016, we have listed the products registered by the Registrar of Pesticides. And also we have a long list of banned pesticides as well. And recently we have banned several pesticides, including diazinon. And you may see that when compared to early 2000, the products registered in the hazard class 1 and 2 are very less. Now, I mean, compared to early 2000, the numbers in the recent years are less. And the class 3 and 4 products we promote, and the large number of products are in class 3 and class 4. The categories of pesticides used in Sri Lanka are not only limited to agro-pesticides. There are so many categories of agro-pesticides, and also household pest control pesticides like mosquito control, mosquito, fly, cockroach control pesticides, then industrial pesticides like sterilizing agents, disinfectants, and the public health pest control pesticides for malaria and dengue control, And also restricted use pesticides like termiticides, fumigants are registered by the Office of the Registrar of Pesticides.
Thank you very much, Jeevani, for that very concise presentation in responding to the question. I have two questions together to be asked right now. I'm sure the audience would like to know what is meant by pesticide registration. I think that's a key topic that we are dealing with. And also, we would like to know the criteria that is used for pesticide registration in Sri Lanka. Over to you, Jeevani.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So this pesticide registration is defined by FAO and WHO, but I am not going to read out all the definition. The key phrases we have to get from that is like evaluation of scientific data pertaining to the pesticides and demonstrating that the product is effective while not posing any unacceptable risk to humans or animal health or to the environment. So when considering the pesticide registration in Sri Lanka, any substance intended for use or used for controlling a pest is called a pesticide, and they shall include active ingredients, adjuvants, and should be like a formulated product. And these pesticides are registered under the Control of Pesticide Act number 33 of 1980. And there are two other amendments in 1994 and 2011. These acts provide for licensing of pesticides, provide legal support for licensing pesticides, and to regulate the imports, packing, labeling, storage, formulation, transport, sale, and use of pesticides. And the Registrar of Pesticides, who is responsible for the Director General of Agriculture, is the sole authority to regulate pesticides from registration to use in Sri Lanka. When we consider the criteria of pesticide registration, the Act has certain provisions under different sections. Under the Section 5, the technical subcommittees can be formulated for decision making for registration of pesticides like agricultural pesticides, biopesticides, domestic and public health, industrial pesticides. So for all these pesticides, there are subcommittees, and under the Section 6 that addresses application for registration of a pesticide, and under the Section 7, pesticide can be registered, and the period of the licensing period is explained like for 3 years or a provisional permit for 1 year. So the Section 6 describe the application for registration of a pesticide. So under this Section 6, the applicant details are mentioned. The applicant should mention his details, and also the details of manufacturer and the formulator of the product, the proposed trade name by the registrant, and the draft label, samples of the container, shelf life, storage stability with proof reports, technical and formulation, detailed composition, physical chemical properties, and the toxicological data like 6 packs for acute toxicity, subchronic, chronic toxicity data, and the antidotes, method of analysis with reports of 5 batches, method for residue analysis, not limited to these, but there are some additional data requested by the ROP with the regulations made under this Section 6. This gives a schematic diagram for the agropesticides registration process. So once the applicant submits the summary data to the Registrar of Pesticides, he he does a preliminary assessment at the office and forwards to the agrochemical subcommittee. And the agrochemical subcommittee is composed of a large number of experts in related areas, related disciplines. And if they're satisfied when following the criteria, the committee recommends bioefficacy testing of the product. And if not satisfied, the committee can reject the application. And then the researcher present the bioefficacy results to the subcommittee. And if the committee satisfies, they can recommend to proceed the other activities. And if not, they can again reject the results and the application. After getting the approval from the agro-pesticide subcommittee, ROP informs the applicant to submit the application with other requirements. Then the applicant submits the application and the dossiers. What you call the dossiers are the technical details of the product given by the manufacturer. And if the technical data are satisfactory, ROP presents his decision to the Pesticide Technical Advisory Committee. This committee is also composed of 15 members from different disciplines and different ministries. And if the dossier data are not satisfactory, ROP can reject the application. But once it is presented at the PTAC, if the requirements are satisfactory, PTAC approves registration. If not satisfied, PTAC can reject the application. And if it is okay, ROP issues the license to the applicant after approving the label. This is the comprehensive approach for registration of a process. Registration of agropesticide. Under this section 4, shows the pesticides technical, who should be in the pesticides technical and advisory committee, PTAC. It is composed of the chair is the Director General of Agriculture and the secretary is the Registrar of Pesticides. And other than them, government analyst, health ministry representative, and the other representatives from Labor Department, Coconut Research Institute, Tea Research Institute, Rubber Research Institute, and SLSI, Environmental Authority, and also 5 other members nominated by the minister are in the Pesticide Technical and Advisory Committee. So for registration, basically, there are 2 approaches. One is bioefficacy evaluation, and the next is scientific data evaluation. So for scientific data evaluation, internationally accepted guidelines are followed like FAO, WHO, OECD guidelines. And the data should be generated by GLP certified or ISO accredited laboratories. But the concerns we have with registration are some manufacturers, they do not meet those criteria. So there are difficulties in meeting the regulatory requirements like lab accreditation, and when generating data, specifically when generating data for biopesticide registration. And sometimes we have concerns over the credibility of the data supplied by the manufacturers. And we have a difficulty in cross-checking, or the traceability is a problem. And there's a lack of trained officers for dossier evaluation, and not only for dossier evaluation, for all purposes at present, but however, for dossier evaluation, specific training or skills are needed. And so understaffing is a problem. So training on assessing risks, then how to bridge with existing data, use of registration toolkits, they are also lacking. So, there is no specific criteria for withdrawing registered pesticides. Although we have a long list of registered pesticides, we cannot withdraw them. And this decision making for bioefficacy testing specifically is done by a collaborative approach by the subcommittees participated by a large number of members. So there could be delays in gatherings, and sometimes vague decisions are made, for example, when considering the risk to bees. Excuse me. So when registering pesticides, we consider this WHO hazard classification. The extremely hazardous and highly hazardous pesticides are not considered for registration. But moderately, slightly hazardous and class 4 pesticides are promoted. Also, for considering or identifying highly hazardous pesticides when registering then mutagenicity, reproductive toxicity, and whether the pesticides are categorized under Stockholm Convention or Rotterdam Convention or Montreal Protocol, like international treaties, and also at the under the conditions of use in a country, whether they pose risk to the farmers or the users. These criteria are used for categorizing highly hazardous pesticides. So we have concerns of pesticide registrations, although we have an act, despite this control made by the act and its regulations, there are various concerns at registration, importation, storage, transportation, sale, use, and everywhere. So I will describe that not only for registration, there are provisions in the Act for other demands of pesticide registration related activities like imports. The section 17 addresses the imports. For importing a pesticide, registrar's written approval is needed. And this imported quantity is basically given by the registrant on the requirement, or maybe considering the previous statistics. But for restricted pesticides, restricted volumes are granted like a quota. And together with the application, a quality certificate should be produced by the manufacturer. This quality certificate is generated from the lab for the particular batch of importation, should tally with the quality data in the product file at registration. For verification, samples should be drawn at importation at the port of entry and analyzed. But the concern is we do not have analytical facilities or trained human resources at the port of entry in Colombo. So we are unable to draw samples for analysis. Therefore, registrants draw the samples and submit to ROP for analysis. So authenticity of the quality certificate and also the integrity of the quality of the product, all these things are are in the hands of the manufacturer and the registrar. So this section 8 has provisions sites. A license is not issued unless there is an approved label. So all the details are specified label. The content should be in all the languages, and other than the mandatory information, the label should contain a phrase registered for a registered pesticide and as an official symbol and the registration number. The concern is with certain labels, the letter size is very minute. The minimum size is 0.6. It is approximately 2.1 millimeters. So the readability is low because many of the farmers are old people, and this can lead to misuse of the pesticides. So under the section 10, the containers or packages are approved by the registrar. So for each and every pesticide, there could be sachets or other sizes of packs. But the concern is the novel pesticides are more specific in action and they need small quantities. And for different pests, different quantities are needed. But this is impractical to have several sachets with different quantities, and if there are different sachets, this can be misleading to the farmer. But when they use large packs to divide and get portions for small land areas, this also sometimes will not be accurate because we do not have graduated measuring devices for powders and granules. But for each and every pack, if we use a separate graduated measuring device, these too many devices can create a risk to the public and the environment as well. When considering the use of pesticides, under the section 20, it addresses like harvesting of crops, because when the crops are applied with pesticides, residues can be there in crops. So the crops with residues exceeding the prescribed limits cannot be harvested or offered for sale. So this is like a legal provision. And the ROP has gazetted maximum residue limits for about over 60 pesticides. This is the gazette. For about 221 crop pesticide combinations, the MRL levels are established or gazetted in Sri Lanka. And recently, a new fee scheme also approved by the cabinet, like 200,000 per pesticide when it is at the registration process, residues can be analyzed. So, however, the concerns are misuse of pesticides due to various reasons. no adoption of the pre-harvest intervals. Although pre-harvest intervals are labeled, the validity of pre-harvest intervals are in question for certain pest product combination. And we need more MRLs to be gazetted. However, the cost is very high for residue analysis. And also when using pesticide, the disposal of containers is another problem. For taking legal actions for contravention of this section of the Act, there are very limited facilities like manpower and funds.
Thank you very much, Jeevani. That was a very detailed and a comprehensive segment that we have covered. I'm sure the audience would need much more information in order to comprehend this specifically, because these are very important and very useful information, I must tell you. And mind you, we'll be uploading the presentation later onto YouTube by the AFA UP, so that you will be in a position to go through again to get more details of this. Well, Jeevani, you were talking about this new fee scheme for residue analysis. But I would like to know whether there is a fee scheme for other related activities with respect to pesticide registration.
Yes, sir. We have a fee structure for different activities with regard to regulation of pesticides. For example, for registration of a general use pesticide, the application fee is 75,000 at present, but it is expected, we have expecting an amendment in the near future for about 150,000 rupees. Likewise, for registration and for restricted use pesticides, other different fee scheme, and for re-registrations, then company registrations, and also for pest control services, imports, and when certifying the agriculture sales and technical assistance, and residue analysis, for quality analysis in the laboratory, and for many other activities, there is a fee scheme.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a useful information for all of us as well. I have another question, Jeevani. Now, you're talking about the Pesticide Control of Pesticide Act. Now, what actions can be taken by the Registrar of Pesticides against any contraventions of that? Over to you. I think people would like to know about at what level ROPC interventions can be there. Over to you, Jeevani.
Okay, sir. When considering the contraventions, the section 12, 50 and 15 address alteration of packages and composition and adulteration of pesticides. Sometimes these happen in bulk storage, which addresses under section 19. However, under this regulation, under these regulations and the Act, nobody can alter pesticide package or composition without written approval from the registrar. And nobody can manufacture, pack, distribute, sell, or offer for sale or deliver adulterated or deteriorated pesticides. However, the concerns are these things happen. Sometimes alterations and relabeling of expired stocks after collection is happening. So these products can be less effective and also may be dangerous to the users and the environment as well. Under the section 14 describes what is a valid pesticide. A valid pesticide is a registered product with an approved container and approved label affixed to the container. So the concerns we have are that sometimes these the order in under this section 14 are contravene. So there is no assurance of the efficacy of those products and could be risk to human health and the environment. These are unknown. There is no quality assurance or responsible entity and can lead to trade issues and also for legal issues. So the registrar has provisions to cancel the license of these such products by stating the reasons. However, when the registrar cancels a license, the registrants can appeal from the secretary of the ministry to consider the decision, reconsider it. Then the secretary's decision is the final and cannot be repealed by court orders. So this happens occasionally. However, the concern is sometimes political interventions also could happen in such situations.
Yeah, thank you very much once again, Jeevani. I think I would like to know further on these things, especially how are the field activities pertaining to pesticide sale and use of, pesticide sale and use, as well as when you consider other activities are legally enforced. I think that's something that we all would like to know. Over to you.
Okay. There is an illegal enforcement at the field levels of these regulatory activities by the authorized officers. So this is stated under the section 21 of the Act. So the Director General has nominated authorized officers to ascertain these contraventions of this Act. So the duties of this authorized officers are to obtain such samples and all other acts connected to this exercise. They also can enter any premises with sufficient notice. However, the concerns are that not all authorized officers are under the command of the registrar because many of them are in different provinces. So like provincial levels. So they have many other duties assigned and maybe have not enough time to enroll with these activities. And also they do not have extra benefit for themselves for taking the risk of involving these legal issues. So under the section 24, penalties for these contraventions are given. So I will read this out. Every person who contravenes or fails to comply with any provisions of this Act or any regulation made thereunder shall be guilty of an offence under this Act. These activities are import, packing, labeling, storage, formulation, transport, sale, and use. So the registrar or any food inspector, public health inspector, Grama Niladhari, inspector of labor or any public officer authorized in that behalf by the registrar shall be empowered to institute proceedings and conduct prosecutions for offences under this Act. So the under Act number 33 of 1980, the legal provision is to be sentenced to imprisonment for a period of 2 years. However, with the amendment in 1994, this has been changed as be liable to imprisonment of either description for a period not exceeding 2 years or to a fine not exceeding 50,000 to 100,000, while for many other peoples than one, 100 not less than 100,000 and not over 500,000. So the concern is this strength of punishment is insufficient because always the court order is to fine but not imprisonment. This fine is negligible for the illegal trade when the illegal trades are happening in millions of rupees. So this need amendments. And another concern is the legal action. The officers who are taking legal actions or court appearances, they need trainings, and they do not get a sufficient incidental allowance. And there is no border control facility to stop these illegal pesticides, because many pesticides can come. We have see around the country, and from India or any other country, this can come. We do not have facility to control them. And also political interventions can happen. And when we take legal action and confiscate those products, we have to dispose them. For disposal, the cost is in millions actually. So collection, tendering, planning, and payments all are done by ROP. Or the government has to pay these costs. But some other person is doing this illegal thing, but we are paying for that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeevani, once again. A lot of issues with respect to illegal activities. Well, you pointed out many concerns, but then when you look at in the overall scenario, what have we done and what are we doing right now as a government, as the Department of Agriculture, as the Registrar of Pesticides Office, to minimize the offenses and also to promote safe and appropriate use of pesticides? Over to you, Jeevani.
Yes, sir. Yeah, actually, while adhering to the specific criteria established by under the regulations and the Act for registration and for regulating the pesticides, we do these things as well. These photos show you the inspection of sales outlets and at the custom clearance as well, for materials unauthorized handling, not authorized handling. And also these inspections are happening at pest control services and dealer outlets and other dealer outlets as well. And we use mass media for awareness making of even school children, public, and many other stakeholders. This is a farmer training done by our officers, and training programs are conducted for different stakeholders, for authorized officers and other sales dealers and other stakeholders. And we have some farmer awareness programs to minimize the hazards faced by the farmers, like distribution of personal protective equipment. And we do like training to extension officers, like sprayer calibration. And this is a co-processing of obsolete and confiscated pesticides collected after legal actions, and taking action to reship illegal. This is illegal means the pesticides like adulterated or are not in the certain qualities, taking action to reship them. And we have a program, this is collaborated with the CropLife Sri Lanka and also with the Central Environmental Authority to collect empty pesticides for recycling. And also we do research, like conducting supervised field trials for establishing pre-harvest intervals, and environmental safety assessment research, and conducting farmer surveys to know about the use of pesticides, and also compliance with the international treaties. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Jeevani. That's Dr. Jeevani Marasinghe from Office of the Registrar of Pesticide, who was our resource person today. And thanks once again for very comprehensive presentation that we have done, addressing most of the concerns the general public as well as those who are involved in the pesticide industry has. There are a few questions on the chat box. The first question comes from the president of the Alumni Association of Faculty of Agriculture, Dr. Tushar Vikramarchi himself. The question, Jeevani, does ROP directly influence or actively engage in monitoring, assessing, or setting standards for pesticide residues in locally produced food commodities? If so, what specific roles or mechanisms does ROP employ in this regulatory process? Over to you.
Yes, for establishing maximum residue levels, ROP can intervene by we have provisions under in the Act for I can go back and show you the maybe yes, under this section 20
Please
we have
the presentation more, Jeevani.
Yes. Yes, under this section 14, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. Under section 20, the crops with residues exceeding prescribed limits cannot be harvested or offered for sale. So, under this act can take legal actions when offend this section. So, under this, registrar can intervene with establishing MRLs. Is that the question he asked?
Yeah, I think that's a specific role that that ROP can get involved in. The question was with respect to standards and regulations as well. Thank you very much. There's another question from Sampath. The question says, once approval is given, or if approval is given, how long the initial registration is given for? That's the first question. The second question is there any process in place to evaluate registered pesticides from time to time? So the first question, Jeevani, how long?
Yes, it is. Yes, for the license is valid for 3 years, and after 3 years, the registrant has to renew the license by giving certain documents to re-register the product, and after the first registration, 6 years after the first registration, the registrant has to do bioefficacy testing again and re-register it. And for the second question, there are nominated laboratories for quality checking of the pesticides. Like one is the analytical laboratory at the Horticulture Research Institute, and ITI, SGS, and several other laboratories in Colombo.
Thank you very much. Well, you presented section 21, section 24, and so on. But here comes a question from Surendra Kumar about section 23 of the Act. Now, the question is, can you explain about the column mentioned as EXP, experiment of what EXP, in section 23?
Sorry, sir, I didn't hear.
the Mr. Surendra Kumar refers to Section 23
Yes.
of the Pesticide Act and would like to know if you can explain the column that states EXP, experiment or what? EXP. Mr. Surendra Kumar want to know what does it mean?
Experimental purpose.
That's right. So it's the experimental purpose.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. To my knowledge, now I don't have the act with me, but to my knowledge, some importations can be done for experimental purposes. That is so. That is not for the registered pesticides. For new products, new pesticides. Registrar can give approval for experimental purposes.
Thank you very much. That's very correct. There's another question coming from Dr. Tushar Vikramarachchi, and we would like to know the initiatives or facilitation processes that Register of Pesticides Office has taken, especially with respect to registration and utilization of microbial pesticides in Sri Lanka when compared to other chemical pesticide regulations.
Those microbial pesticides, they come under the category of biopesticides. So we have like a registration procedure for registering those, a criteria for biopesticides, and also a subcommittee that can discuss and take decisions whether to register or not those pesticides. And also for microbial pesticides, not only registrar alone cannot take decisions, but I think these come under the Plant Protection Act as well. So we have to get their permission as well when registering such items.
Thank you very much. That's a complete answer, I guess. Manjula Veerasinghe asks a question from you. He says, based on our recent data, carbosulfan is currently responsible for more than 60% of pesticide-related suicides in rural Sri Lanka. Is it possible to find alternatives for this insecticide? If yes, what will be the procedure?
Yes, sir. Carbosulfan is a carbamate. Maybe sometimes for some certain pests, there are no other alternatives, but only carbosulfan is the recommendation. But when it comes to other recommendations having alternatives, it is okay. But if it is the only chemical recommended for a certain pest, we have to find alternatives before considering restriction or banning of such products.
Thank you very much, Jeevani. This will be the last question, considering the time as well, coming from another member, Dr. M.S. Nijamuddin, a person who is well known to all of us. The question is, if a product having dual action, like plant growth promoters and being a pesticide, what is the mechanism for the approval of the product, as another committee is available for plant growth promoters in Department of Agriculture? So there are two committees that are available. So the question is, if a product has both these qualities of being a growth promoter as well as a pesticide, what will be the procedure?
If the product claims for pesticidal action, that should definitely register under this control of Pesticides Act, because that under this act, pesticide plant growth regulators are also defined as pesticides when they have pesticidal action.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think, colleagues, It's past 5 minutes past 8 now. We have been here with you all for almost 1 hour. Actually, it's 1 hour because we started at 5 minutes past 7. And thank you very much for joining with us. As clearly explained by the president of the AFAUP, we have been meeting you all once in every other week. In other words, the second and fourth Wednesday of every month, coming to you with very critical issues to be discussed, especially in relation to agriculture, and also to make sure the general audience, general public will know what exactly in store for them, what exactly the procedures are, because a lot of myths are spreading across, and our job is to educate people, educate the general public. So that's a role play of Alumni Association of Faculty of Agriculture. That's why we have embarked on conducting this public webinar series, as I told you, in fortnight intervals. So thank you very much once again for being with us today. Let's meet you all once again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you very much.